Hey, this is Ben from Howcast Gaming. I'm here at New York Comic Con 2011. We're going to take a look at some of the new games that are coming out.
All right, so here we are at the Rockstar booth. We just got out of seeing Max Payne 3. They wouldn't let us bring any cameras inside at the threat of death.
Super secret.
It was super secret, but we did get a nice look at the game, and so we could do a little back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think of the game? You're not familiar with Max Payne, so this is a new experience for you, right?
I haven't played Max Payne 1 or 2, so this is completely new to me. I know you mentioned he was very, very sincere about how it's a New York-based game, but they're bringing it to Sao Paulo, and I lived in Brazil for a year, and the city scenes in Sao Paulo look fantastic. It looks exactly like Sao Paulo.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so Max Payne 3 takes place a few years after Max Payne 2. Max Payne, typically from New York, from the NYPD, he has now moved to Sao Paulo, and he's working as a private security firm. What we saw inside were 3 levels, where one of them taking place towards the beginning of the game where Max is in New York. He has his full head of hair. He's very close to the Max that you know from Max Payne 1 and 2. And then later on, they take you to the Sao Paulo to see what those levels are like. And I have to say, like, when Max Payne 3 was first announced and there was this imagery of a bald, old, like kind of fat Max Payne in another country, it felt like they had made a list of everything that made Max Payne great, and they just did the opposite, and I was very much against that. But like seeing these levels, they really tried to find the spirit of Max Payne and retain that, and then just advance it into a new place with a new look, and you get to see that through things like there's no regenerative health, which in today's game world, that's kind of not done anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and you get health through painkillers, which is something you did in the first 2 games. You know, you have bullet time, and it's a limited bullet time, just like the first 2 games. They do have these motion comic cutscenes that they're not exactly like the old cutscenes for Max Payne, which were more like a noir, black and white comic book, but you know, they kind of retain some of that style, and you've got the inner monologue and all these things that just kind of make it Max Payne, but in a new setting.
Also, something that stuck out to me was it's really dark. Like, the storyline is depressing as hell.
Yeah.
Like you say, he's old and bald, and yet he looks
For people who
so
don't
shitty.
For people who don't know Max Payne, like the beginning of Max Payne 1, these gangsters, these people, they kill your wife and your baby.
Yeah,
And
well, it
so
shows.
like your life kind of goes in a downward spiral because
It
your
shows in
family's
his face,
dead.
and how
Right.
he can't stop drinking
Right.
Jack Daniels.
Now, the one thing I didn't like, LA Noire comes out, and it's got this revolutionary face motion capture technology, and while there was some thought that you wouldn't get to see this in other games outside of Rockstar, there's at least this idea that, well, every Rockstar game after this must have this technology, right? But it was nowhere to be found. It was like traditional keyframe facial animation, and because it was a work in progress, it wasn't too smooth yet. But it didn't look like, you know, they were placeholders for putting in those facial captures.
Yeah.
It looks like we're not going to see it.
I don't think we're going to be seeing that in this game.
And that's kind of disappointing, and it makes me wonder if that has something to do with them falling out with Team Bondi, which just happened recently.
Or it might just simply be, you know, so much of the production of LA Noire was sucked into that facial recognition software.
Yeah.
Like, that was so much time. Maybe they just don't have the time to invest in their games like that.
Yeah. And moving on to gameplay, I mean, we saw a lot, the cornerstone of Max Payne, and it was the first game to really do it, was bullet time.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was back when movies were first starting to show this off. It returns in Max Payne 3. It's mostly the same exact mechanic you've seen, jumping back, flipping, you know, towards the camera, away from the camera, rolling around. They've added this cool wavy effect that you kind of see, like, radiating off of him as you go into bullet time. They've added this new element of gameplay. Do you want to talk about the
last bullet?
The last bullet.
Oh, man. Right, so if you kill the last guy, if you shoot the last guy that's, like, around you, what happens, it goes into bullet time that you can control the speed of, but it just, like, follows that bullet all the way towards that guy and, like, lodging into his skull, or, like, knocking him off of the cliff, and, like, to his death. Like, there were people watching us going, oh, it's really intense.
What about the final stand mechanic? You know,
absolutely. So if you're being shot at and ultimately killed, like if you're dying, you go into that bullet time, you go into your final stance. final stand, and you get a chance to kill that guy who's killing you. And if you pull it off, and you have the painkillers to raise your health, it saves you.
Yeah, that's the key. You need to have that painkiller.
You gotta have those painkillers, but you do have that opportunity to save yourself going into bullet time. So it looks like they're taking bullet time, something that they can do already and have done already, and putting some really cool, neat changes to it.
Yeah. They've hinted at, I think, by talking about just the scale of the city, that there is going to be some sort of open world mechanics that, like they said, was in the tradition of Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto, and like those games as well, there's going to be a multiplayer mechanic, but they haven't given us any details about it. Somebody raised a good question. We were watching levels where there was, is Max Payne and the girl he was protecting, and of course, it seemed like a very traditional setup for a co-op level where they kind of get split up and one has to open a door for another and they have to meet up. And so they wouldn't say anything officially, but I would not be surprised to see some sort of co-op introduced into this game.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. But overall, I was really happy with what I saw. I went in a little disappointed with what Max Payne as the direction it was going in, and I was really kind of happy with how it turned out.
I left disappointed with how much time I'm gonna have to spend playing Max Payne 1 and 2.
Yes.
Because I gotta catch up.
Yeah, you want to go back to that, and we can only hope that it's gonna have like the same sort of writing that Max Payne 1 and 2 is very known for. Its very pulpy, film noir kind of writing, and hopefully we'll get to see that in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's as much as Max Payne 3 as we could have brought to you, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of it soon as the game, approaches release in March of 2012.
Yeah, next year.
Yep.